Hello, my friends, and welcome back to English on Point podcast, the space where we don't just learn English as a subject to be memorized or a skill to be mastered, but as a living, breathing companion that walks beside us through the quiet mornings, the overwhelming afternoons, and the reflective evenings of our lives. And I'm Maya, sitting here with a warm cup of tea, thinking about how often we've been told that fluency requires grand gestures. Hours of study, perfect pronunciation, flawless grammar, and yet the truth, the real quiet truth that so many of us have discovered through trial and error, through hope and frustration, through showing up even when we didn't feel ready, is that fluency isn't built in the spotlight of big achievements, but in the soft, steady light of tiny, consistent choices that we make day after day, often without fanfare, often without even noticing their cumulative power, until one day we look back and realize that we've changed, that we've grown, that we no longer translate in our heads, but feel the rhythm of English in our bones, like a second heartbeat. And it's this gentle human truth that Leo and I want to explore with you today, the art of starting small, the quiet courage of doing less so you can actually do more, the wisdom of building your fluency not through force, but through faithfulness. One small sentence, one soft breath, one tiny yes at a time.
That's beautifully said, Maya, and it resonates so deeply because I think we've all been there. Waking up with the best of intentions, declaring to ourselves, today is the day I finally become fluent, only to find ourselves by lunchtime already defeated. Not because we lack ability, but because we've asked too much of ourselves too soon, like expecting a seed to become a tree overnight. And what's remarkable is that the path forward isn't about doing more. It's actually about doing less, but doing it with presence, with patience, with a kind of radical gentleness that says, it's okay if all I do today is this one small thing, because that one small thing repeated with love becomes the foundation of everything that comes after. And today, we're going to unravel why that is, how it works, and how you can begin to weave these tiny threads into the rich tapestry of your own fluent life.
Exactly, Leo. And before we go any further, I want to invite you, the listener, to take a deep breath with us right now. Not because this is a lesson to be rushed through, but because this is a conversation to be lived in, a space to be inhabited, a reminder that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be fast. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be here, willing to listen, willing to try, willing to trust that your quiet effort matters more than you know. And as we talk today, we hope you'll hear not just strategies, but a kind of permission, a permission to slow down, to simplify, to stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, because your journey is yours alone, and it deserves to be honored exactly as it is, right now in this moment.
So let's begin by asking a question that so many of us avoid. Why do we quit? Why, after days or weeks or even months of showing up for our English, do we so often find ourselves stepping away? Not because we've stopped caring, but because the weight of the shoulds has become too heavy. The I should study for an hour, the I should know this by now, the I should be further along. And it's precisely these shoulds that create the very pressure that makes us want to run in the opposite direction. Because the human spirit doesn't thrive under pressure. It thrives under possibility, under curiosity, under the gentle invitation to begin again. And this is where the power of tiny habits comes in. Not as another rule to follow, but as a lifeline back to yourself, a way to reconnect with the joy that first drew you to English in the first place.
And it's important to understand that this isn't about laziness or lack of discipline. It's about design, about designing a practice so small, so manageable, so almost laughably easy that your brain doesn't resist it. Because resistance isn't born from unwillingness. It's born from overwhelm, from the feeling that the mountain is too steep to climb. So why even take the first step? But what if the first step wasn't a step at all, but a breath, a glance, a single word spoken softly to yourself in the mirror? And what if that breath, that glance, that word became the quiet signal to your nervous system that you're safe, that you're not being asked to do that impossible, but simply to show up as you are? And in that safety, something miraculous happens. Your mind opens, your heart softens, and your willingness returns. Not because you've pushed yourself harder, but because you finally stopped pushing altogether and instead extended a hand of kindness to the part of you that's been trying so hard for so long.
Let me tell you about a woman named Anna who lives in a small town in Portugal where the cobblestone streets echo with the sound of church bells and the scent of fresh bread drifts from open doorways. And Anna, like so many of us, wanted to learn English not for a test or a job, but to connect with her granddaughter who lives in Canada, with the stories and the books she loves to read, with the world beyond her village. And for years, she tried the right way: textbooks, apps, hour-long study sessions, but she always ended up frustrated, feeling like she was failing. Until one day, she decided to do something radical. She stopped trying to learn English and started trying to live it, just for 2 minutes a day. And every morning, as she made her coffee, she would say one sentence aloud in English. Sometimes it was, "The sky is blue." Sometimes it was, "I love this quiet morning." And sometimes it was just, "Hello, world." And that was it. No more, no less. And at first it felt insignificant, almost silly. But over time, those 2 minutes became her sanctuary, her daily ritual of self-trust. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the English began to seep into the rest of her day. In the way she hummed songs while cleaning, in the notes she left for herself on the fridge, in the quiet pride she felt when she finally called her granddaughter and understood more than she ever had before. And what's beautiful is that Anna didn't become fluent because she studied more. She became fluent because she finally stopped fighting herself and started befriending the process.
And Anna's story isn't unique. It's a reflection of a universal truth that psychologists and neuroscientists have been uncovering for decades: that the brain doesn't change through force, but through repetition. And not just any repetition, but repetition that feels safe, sustainable, and satisfying. Because when we engage in a behavior that doesn't trigger our stress response, our brain begins to associate that behavior with pleasure, with reward, with safety. And that's when it starts to rewire itself, not in dramatic leaps, but in gentle, steady increments. And this is why the 2 minute rule is so powerful. It's not about the 2 minutes themselves, but about the psychological shift that happens when you remove the barrier to entry. When you say to yourself, I don't have to be perfect, I just have to begin. Because once you begin, you create momentum. And momentum is the quiet engine of transformation.
And it's not just about time, it's about energy. Because so often we confuse time with energy, thinking that if we have an hour free, we should be able to use it productively. But the truth is that time without energy is like a car without fuel. You can have the whole day ahead of you, but if your internal battery is at 5%, you're not going to get very far. And this is where the concept of the power hour comes in. Not as another thing to schedule, but as an invitation to pay attention to your own rhythms. To notice when your mind is clearest, your focus sharpest, your energy most aligned, and to protect that time like the precious resource it is. Because when you match your best energy with your most important task, you create magic, not through effort, but through alignment. And for some people, that power hour is at dawn, when the world is still quiet and the mind is fresh. For others, it's in the evening, after the chaos of the day has settled and the soul can finally breathe. And for others still, it's in those unexpected pockets of stillness, on the bus, in the shower, while waiting in line. Moments that most people scroll through, but that you can reclaim as sacred spaces for connection with your language, for whispering a phrase, for listening to a song, for letting the sounds and rhythms of English wash over you like a gentle rain.
And this brings us to another crucial piece of the puzzle: the quiet art of saying no. Not as a rejection of others, but as an affirmation of yourself. Because in a world that constantly demands our attention, our time, our energy, the most radical act of self respect is to set boundaries that protect what matters most to you. And for the English learner, this might look like turning off your phone for the first 30 minutes of the day so you can connect with your language before you connect with the world. Or it might look like telling a friend, I'd love to chat, but I need to finish my listening practice first. Or it might simply look like giving yourself permission to rest when you're tired instead of pushing through out of guilt. Because boundaries aren't walls that shut people out, they're doors that you control, allowing you to choose who and what gets to enter your sacred space. And when you protect your time and energy with kindness and clarity, you're not being selfish, you're being strategic because you cannot pour from an empty cup. And you cannot build fluency on a foundation of depletion.
But perhaps the most important and most overlooked aspect of this journey is the way we speak to ourselves. Because so often we are our own harshest critics, berating ourselves for mistakes, comparing ourselves to others, telling ourselves that we're not good enough, not fast enough, not smart enough. And what we forget is that the voice inside our head is not just a commentary on our lives, it's a creator of them. And when that voice is kind, patient, and encouraging, it becomes a source of strength. But when it's critical, impatient, and harsh, it becomes a source of resistance. And this is why self-compassion isn't just a nice to have, it's a necessity. Because growth doesn't happen in the soil of shame, it happens in the soil of love. And so I want to invite you to ask yourself, would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? If your friend made a mistake in English, would you say, "You're so slow, you'll never get this"? Or would you say, "It's okay, you're learning, try again"? And if it's the latter, then why not offer yourself that same kindness, that same patience, that same unwavering belief in your ability to grow? Because you deserve it just as much as anyone else does.
And this self compassion extends to how we measure progress because so often we look for big, visible results fluency, confidence, perfect pronunciation. And when we don't see them right away, we assume we're failing. But the truth is that the most important progress is often invisible. It's the neural pathways being strengthened, the confidence being built in tiny increments, the fear being quieted one small act of courage at a time. And so instead of asking, am I fluent yet? Try asking, did I show up today? Because showing up is the victory. Starting is the triumph. And every time you choose to try again, even after a stumble, you are not just learning English, you are learning how to be a friend to yourself, how to trust the process, how to believe in the power of small things. And that belief, that quiet, steady belief, is what will carry you through every challenge, every doubt, every moment of uncertainty that lies ahead.
So, as we come to the end of our time together today, I want to leave you with this. You don't need to change everything all at once. You just need to change one small thing and then do it again tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. Because fluency isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a way of being that you cultivate through daily practice, through tiny acts of courage, through the quiet decision to show up for yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it feels like no one is watching, because someone is watching. You are. And the person you're becoming is worth every small effort you make, every gentle word you speak, every quiet yes you whisper into the world.
So take a deep breath, my friend, and know that you are not alone on this journey. We're walking it with you, one small step at a time. And if this conversation resonated with you, we'd be honored if you'd share it with someone else who might need to hear it. And if you'd like to join our community of gentle learners, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And in the comments below, tell us, my tiny habit this week is, because your words have the power to inspire someone else to begin. And that's how we grow, not alone, but together in this beautiful, imperfect human dance of learning.
Thank you for listening with your whole heart today. You are doing better than you think, and you're more capable than you know. And we'll see you next time on English on Point podcast.
Keep learning, keep growing, keep beginning softly, slowly, bravely.